So I'm going to go through all 4 of the drives here, and I'm going to service them, and we'll do this one here on video. I've stripped the drives down. I've removed the main PCB up here. I put a paper tag on the board and on the case just so that they go together, because the read-write stuff should be, I want it to stay matched with the particular head that's in the drive. You do not want to break loose these screws down here on the stepper motor, because if you do, the stepper motor will rotate and you'll get the heads out of alignment. So you really don't want to touch that, so just leave him alone. I've taken the 4 screws out of the corners here that remove at the front panel shift aside, and that way I can get easy access kind of into the mechanism here to clean. It's not super dirty, it's not super clean. I've got a couple different ways I'm going to approach this. I think the first one, I'm just going to take a paper towel. I'm going to squirt it with a little Windex. That's, it's a nice degreaser on top of everything else, and I'm just going to wipe it out. And try to wipe out as much of what's in there as I can. And you can see what's coming out is already pretty nasty. I may actually end up squirting a little bit inside of here just to get some fluid. I obviously can't get into every nook and cranny here, but it's a lot easier to do with the front off the drive. I've also got a toothbrush, and I'm going to try that with some alcohol to kind of get in these areas here and clean. So let me get some alcohol in a little dish, and we'll give that a shot and see if we can knock some of that out of there. This isn't strictly necessary, but it's just kind of a nice try to knock as much of that out of there as I can without disturbing stuff too much. The alcohol shouldn't touch the plastic on the head step assembly here. If you were to be using acetone for this, that acetone would attack that plastic and destroy it, and you would of course lose the drive. So you need to be careful with the materials you use. It doesn't really want to push back through there. I'll get a fresh piece of paper towel. Hopefully it shows up in video. This already just looks much cleaner inside. Again, I'm not really worried about perfection here. Just trying to knock the looser stuff free. There's a little bit down in the cavity here. Not that again, it's going to tremendously matter. Oh, you can hear my 2 dogs outside barking. Brush the dust off of that, clean it up a bit. So I did some more reading. I know in a previous video I had said that I read that you didn't want to lubricate the slides that the head's on, and I actually think what that's talking about is this plastic disc down below that is the head positioning mechanism. You don't want to lubricate that, and that makes some sense to me. But I am going to go ahead and lubricate the slides. I've not got any Q-tips in here. Let me go grab some Q-tips. It'll be just a second. Sorry about that. So you don't want to use a lubricant that's going to attack plastic, since there is plastic here, here, and up under here that this glides on. So you don't really want to use plastic or anything that will attack plastic. You don't really want to use like a light machine oil, like a 3-in-1, because ultimately it'll attract dirt. It attracts dust and it becomes gummy. There's a lot of varying opinions on the web about the best lubricant to use. The general consensus that I've seen, it doesn't take much here. I just want to get a little bit there. It doesn't take much. I want to get a little bit up underneath. I've honestly got too much on there. I'm going to get back around here. I'll take another Q-tip and wipe some of this off. I want to get a little bit in here without getting any down onto the plastic disc down below. And I'm going to get a little bit down in here, kind of where I can. I can actually feel it. That's already smoother. I'm going to take another Q-tip here and I'm just going to wipe some of the excess off. Not that lithium grease wipes off well. A little bit that's on there is not going to hurt. Yeah, I can feel that that's moving much better already. And really, I'm going to call that good. We've already cleaned the heads in the drive. Let me get in here with a little bit more alcohol and just kind of try to knock some of this loose back in here. Get in there as best I can with a paper towel. And just dry that out. The alcohol will evaporate pretty quickly. I'm going to go ahead and knock what I can of the this was put on here to glue the screw into place to keep it from moving. It's not super critical. I think with that done, the alcohol won't attack the plastic here, but Windex maybe. So as far as I can tell, I can't tell if this is it feels to me like it's a paper decal with the Raised Disc 2 and Apple logo on it, so I don't really want to wet that. Because if it is paper, of course, wetting it will wrinkle the paper. But I do want to kind of just get that dust that was down in there out. That's actually much better already. You can see what's wiping up out of there. The problem with the alcohol here is it might attack adhesives that are keeping that little decal in place. I'm just going to kind of wipe this down, just trying to knock that surface dust off. That, oops, though it's shiny, due to being wet, I can actually see that I've, you can just tell on the Q-tip that I've knocked a fair amount of dust off of there. So this doesn't need to be too extensively deep a cleaning. Work this back on without stressing the LED wiring. These were these little flat pan heads. Let's go ahead and put the front back on the drive. In this case, these are screws turning down into the cast metal here. I've got two more over here. Actually, some were slotted and some were Phillips. So I want to look for the other two slotted. This is the older drive, I think, of the bunch. And like I say, the screws across these are a mix of slotted head and Phillips head in the same positions. Not a huge thing. That looks a little better. The spindle on this rotates nice and freely. It doesn't need any kind of lubrication. Which is a good thing. This is of course going to go back in here. I'm going to put just a little bitty bit of lithium grease on the little plastic pegs that slide in there. Just because one of these drives is kind of squeaky when you open and close the door, and it's about gotta be there that it's squeaky. Wipe the excess off. I apologize, I'm not doing this on camera. And I'm doing that upside down. This guy in place here. A little lift arm on the head. Needs to ride on top. Take the tension off. There's not really a lot of room to align this. Doesn't really require alignment, you know, as long as the hub pieces fit together. That doesn't want to close, and I'm not sure why. I had assumed all four of these were identical. Obviously they're not. That's quite interesting. Nope. Not sure why they would be different. I'm comparing them here visually, and I certainly don't see a difference. Well, I'm going to try a different one. So I'm getting a little bit of lithium grease. My Q-tip here. Doesn't need much. Of course, it's going to be a pain. You want to line up. These really aren't that different. I'm not sure why that's giving me so much trouble. Okay, I'm just being stupid. It feels like it's going to lock down just fine. So there is some difference in that one, and I don't know what that difference is. Actually, I want to Just going to knock the dust off of these while I'm here. You can see what's coming off of there. You'd never be able to see this from the outside, but I would know that it was there and still kind of dirty. I'm just using a little bit of alcohol here, just to kind of act as a bit of a solvent. Okay, let's put the screws back in. Maybe. And test again. That must not be the one that was in this drive either. That's interesting. I really took these to all be identical, and for these didn't actually number them. You can see that the screw holes don't quite line up. So is one of them a slightly different width? Yes, this one. Well, this is what I get for not marking everything as I took it apart. We'll get it back together. This looks like the first one I tried, even though it isn't it. Two of them have the brown. This one's going to have plenty of lubrication up in these. That feels like it engages just fine. The head or the pad lifters above the arm. Here's the thing, as identical as they seem visually. Obviously there's slight differences in the casting. Oh yeah, that locks nice and solid. Wipe the excess grease off of here. It feels really good. This is Unit D. This is the Unit D board. And these are these screws. I did pay attention to at least the screw types that went everywhere when I took it apart. And this drive's head mechanism is back with the drive it started with, which is what I wanted. So any adjustments in the analog electronics for that particular head are the same as they were originally. Let's get this piece of tape off of here. This piece of tape off of here. This cable, of course, goes back on here. Let me pick up some of the trash off the bench here. Make a bit of room. Get the lid on the grease before I lean on it and squeeze grease everywhere. And This is the ribbon cable that went with this one again. Why I say it's the oldest one I've got because of this ribbon cable. I'm going to set the drive aside. Going to get some paper towel here. And I'm going to wet it well. And I'm just going to make some runs along this ribbon cable to kind of try to knock the worst of whatever's on it off, because it is filthy. Don't want to stress the cable too much. What I wiped out of there isn't too bad, but you know, knocked a fair amount of off of it. I find Windex works pretty well for this kind of stuff. It dries quickly. I don't believe it leaves any real residue behind, although I've been proven wrong before. A lot cleaner than it was. It feels better. Wouldn't call it perfect, but drive back up here. Cable goes on that direction. No, it doesn't. Did you see that? I was putting the cable on upside down. The controller card, if I can get it to come out of the Mother 2 or the Apple II motherboard, it's on correctly. Back into slot 6. Connected, connected, connected. Orientations look correct. Everything is back together as a drive. Just heard the head step back. I'm not going to flip this over. So that I can see the wheel here. I could potentially clean underneath here, but I don't really think it needs it. If you find my little flat screwdriver, I want to get the unit spinning. And while I've got it apart, I'm just going to go ahead and tweak the speed. I'm using the shadow with a knife. A little too far to kind of create an alignment mark. The shadow with a knife is giving me an edge up on the outer ring that I can then compare. That seems really solid. I think that's fine. Let's flip the drive back over. It doesn't sound bad. We'll attempt to boot something here. So here's ProDOS. And I can hear the head stepping. And it's starting up ProDOS. Not bad. I'm happy with that. As much as I want to put a little grease on the head position mechanism, I'm not going to. And here it is starting AppleDOS. Loading under basic in the language card. And again, I'm happy with that. We're into basic. So That all looks reasonable. Power down. Set the drive aside. These are the skins that came off that drive. There's a little bit of dust in the back corner back here. Then I'm just going to use a little bit of Windex to break loose and wipe out of there. It actually turned muddy coming out of there. It was thicker than I thought. Oh yeah, the whole thing was just kind of... Now that I'm wiping the entire surface down, you can see the difference. It was just kind of a little bit dirty. Nice. Looks much nicer. With a piece of paper towel. Yeah, I'm actually cleaning the inside of the skin. But why not? It's a part. It's not going to hurt anything. I'll know I did it, even if you won't be able to see it. The bottom here is not as pretty looking. We'll see how much of this we can get to wipe off. Another piece of paper towel. The Windex shouldn't attack the adhesive holding the rubber feet on, which is a good thing. And that looks a lot nicer. This, I don't want to attack this paper decal, which means I'm going to Windex on the paper towel to kind of wipe around it, while trying not to wet it. And yeah, there is definitely stuff coming off. It's not bad. Let's move on to the case top. It's got these kind of cardboard paper kind of mesh in here that I probably don't want to wet. See what's coming off of there. Just comparing the two sides side by side. It's much cleaner than it was. All kinds of handprints and fingerprints and oil off people's palms and everything on the side of the case here. Hopefully you can see the difference there on camera from where I wiped and where I haven't. And I'm not worried about perfection here. I just want it cleaner and newer looking. And if you compare how dull and gray that is versus the nice beige color on this side, it's definitely making a difference. Get more paper towel. Again, hopefully you can see as I wipe just what is coming off of there. So much nicer. There's little dings and chews and stuff in the metal, but that's fine. That patina of just, you know, oil off people's hands. It's just kind of nasty. I'm actually going to get in here and try to scrub down into these edges and knock whatever's in those loose. Just a nice soft toothbrush. Let the bristles do the work. You may be able to see the color that the Windex has turned as I've scrubbed that out of there. That's definitely much nicer. Trying a bit to guard that insert in the vent grills. I'm not sure why there's actually an insert in there. I guess to ultimately keep dirt out. So that's raised and it feels like it was an adhesive. Let's see if we can knock it off with some alcohol. If you can't get it to knock off with alcohol and you use a product like Goo Gone, definitely use it inside of the case first to make sure it doesn't attack the finish. That's nice. That little spot of sticker residue has been removed. The line of dirt that was around the insides of, that's actually a chip in the metal, are gone. I'm actually happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and just wipe out the inside as well. Just because I can, since it's open. Didn't pull too much out, but I know I've hit it. I know this is the case that was with that original, that older drive with the rainbow ribbon cable. This I actually sorted out separate, just to kind of keep it a little more original. Just because it is the drive I wanted with the rainbow cable. So, pre the days of worrying about RF. So, I'm happy with that. Get the drive mechanism back up here. We have enough screws now that I'll be able to get screws back in, and with the one that's become a parts drive at this point, because a couple drives were missing screws. Actually, these were, I hate to say it, flatheads again. And kind of speaks to the age. There's one there. That screw's having a hard time turning down in. There was one, and it was actually this corner back here where the screw wasn't all the way down in flush And I didn't bother to look why, I just assumed it was loose. There's the other one with the flat head. There it is. Like I said, I didn't bother to try to tighten it up. I just assumed it was loose, but feeling how this is going in, I can get it to turn on down and tight. It's just nice and tight. Finger snug, plus a bit of a turn. That one kind of didn't want to pull in. Oh, poo. The ribbon cable's been soaking in alcohol accidentally. Luckily it won't hurt it. Just get the alcohol out of the way. Work the ribbon cable with its RF ferrites back into here. Reclamp it. That's good. We have the top cover for this one. The first time I took this one apart, the top cover is kind of sprung. So it requires me flexing the case a bit to get the screws in and started, which is fine. These were Phillips on this drive, they weren't flathead. I believe these were the only Phillips screws I removed. Everybody else out of him was a flathead. There's one back here. Just pulling in a little bit gently, so that looking down through, it appears the threaded part of the screw is centered in the hole in the case. I don't know if that actually pulls it in square, but it's certainly good enough. So, grab one of the cases from one of the other ones. Just for comparison. See how much cleaner this is, consistent. You can see how dirty and nasty this is. The drive front's much cleaner. I can actually see a couple more things I want to hit on the front of the case. This has got this scratch on it, but it is what it is. I thought about swapping it with another faceplate. Just get that little bit of dust out of there and there. Hopefully not peel off. There's just a little bit of dust down in that corner. The mechanism is nice and smooth. The plastic isn't squealing. That little bit of lithium grease. It locks down nice. These are dusty down inside. I'm just going to wipe them out as best I can. Actually fractured the plastic there. Now, not the end of the world. The dust has really settled on the horizontal surfaces, as would be expected. Let's flip it around and hit this side. And I'm doing this without wetting anything, just to kind of wipe it out. I you know, to my eye, they look much nicer. Oops. Getting a little bit rough on the drive there. I am pulling the controller card out every time to attach the cable, just so visually I can make sure I'm not off a pin. It's a little bit rough, especially with the motherboard just hanging here in the air without the stiffening bar on the back. That should. We heard the head step back. We'll throw in a floppy. You can hear the head stepping. And we're booted into ProDOS. Now the menu's still coming up. But there we are. The drive doesn't sound bad. It looks much nicer. The door latch is much smoother. A little bit of lithium, like say, on the plastic there. Well, one down, 3 more to go. So rather than bore you with 3 identical cleaning sessions here, I'll end this video here, and hopefully this was useful to somebody. We'll talk soon.